Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of the Low-Code Café, the first one this year. So we are happy to announce that it's the episode 74. Today's topic will be about the JavaScript APIs that sit behind the modules and that offer the capabilities to achieve a lot of more custom functionality. But before that, let's welcome the new faces as well to this webinar. This is a community event that we are doing every week. And it's for the community, so meaning that it's not for let's say, building new things, as it is about learning new techniques, seeing new patterns, seeing new features, seeing what's coming in the product. We sometimes have guest speakers showing us what they do with Plant and Apps. So if you want to present, make sure to reach out to us. We'll be happy to host you. And this happens, as mentioned, every week, same day, same hour. And it does have a sister event that happens on Fridays, which is the Low-Code Campfire, which is more of a community gathering. So it's more like an open conversation, whereas this is more presenting techniques and features that are prepared a bit in advance. All these events are being recorded, so if you head to our YouTube channel, you have 73 hours of very good content in there, with content varying from how to build, how to power mobile applications, to how to start building new system from scratch, how to migrate legacy applications. So there's tons of very good content in there. So make sure to visit, subscribe to stay in the loop. The agenda for today is, first I will give you a bit of information about the current release and the upcoming releases. And then we'll hear some stories from the trenches with Del Warner, our head of support, where we learn some techniques, some items that are hot now in the community forums and in the community help desk. And then we'll head towards receiving some updates on the training part from Radu, which is our head of training. And finally, Radu will continue to give us the biggest chunk of this event, which is about the JavaScript APIs, as mentioned. As always, engage with us in any manner that you have at your disposal with the Q&A chat window. And there's also the feedback form that helps us improve this event from one edition to the next. Cool. So that being said, let's get our hands dirty. First, I wanted to announce that with this release, with this last release, 1.18, that we got out on December 20th, we really managed to get all the hotfixes out that we were identified during the beta stage of it. So if you head to your Plant and App instance, if you haven't already, you'll notice there are 9 hotfixes already published, and we have at least one that is going to be published soon. So I think that emphasizes the importance of our beta program, so being active in the beta program, getting involved if you are not already. This helps us catch these things ahead of time, so we have time to fix them, and soon after the release also publish them. So much appreciated to everyone that helped us get this on our radar. As far as the next release, this will be pushed for 1 week. So we'll push the beta for January 26th. The holidays delayed our schedule for a week. This 1.19 release will be a lot about what we announced it as a major front-end revamp. So we are upgrading all the front-end components to Bootstrap 5 and also implementing a clean and modern look and feel on top of Bootstrap 5. And for example, I have a screenshot here from the new listing module that's being revamped to Bootstrap 5. So it's already in a very good shape, but a lot more things are left to, of course, to migrate. And we've announced in 1.18 many obsolete features already, and in 1.19, as we are doing this revamp, we are also looking at what features don't make sense anymore or are rarely used, and moving those on the obsolete list as well, with 1.20 being our spring cleanup release, where we'll remove a lot of these obsoletes. There is a list with everything that will get removed, but I will let Dale and Radu speak more about them. So welcome back from vacation. Hope you had a wonderful holidays. And now I will pass it to Dale.
Well, hello all. Yes, welcome back. Happy New Year. Let me share my screen here. I wish I'd thought to copyright that phrase, because I suspect I'd get a penny every time. Anyway, I'm going to put some, before I get too far in, I'm going to put some information on the chat. This is some of the stuff I'm going to talk about and some of our common things. So take a look at that. Today, want to just mention we crossed another threshold last week in our product retreat. And I think the people, a lot of you are familiar with this, but going forward on the DNN Sharp products, we're only selling Action Form, Search Boost, and their related add-ons. And the line that we crossed is we're no longer renewing any of those other products. And so then there's just one more one more thing that we're going to do in a product retreat, which is we're ending support for all those other products starting on all the obsolete products starting on March 31st. So that's the end of support date. And just mentioned there's some significant discounts for converting to Plant an App. So you'll want to do that before March 31st if you're still on the fence on that. So from the technical content side here, we have, I've got a little preview of what's coming up this week in Campfire. We had some questions over the last couple of weeks that related to dynamic forms. And so within Campfire, we have built this demonstration of dynamic form. And so, for example, and we've touched on this before in our emailing series in the webinar. You can look back on that in the Low-Code Café as well. But dynamic form lets you generate content dynamically. So, for example, you can see I have 5 questions here asking about demographic kind of information. This is a field that would normally be hidden, but it's showing some JSON that's used to build these fields. The dynamic, the same form can be used to prompt for security type information. So you can get multiple uses out of one form. It's great when you don't know the questions that you're going to ask in advance. If you have static questions, just a normal form makes sense, but this is dynamic form. So the question that we got on the help desk had to do more with how do I process that information out? Once you've, when it's submitted, all these fields are dynamic, so you have to have some way to iterate through the fields and pull the information off the fields and do something with them. So we'll cover both sides of that, and that's the Low-Code Campfire. That's Fridays at 10 a.m. Central Time. So we'll be doing that, and that link to pre-register for that is on the clipboard on the chat. The other thing I wanted to talk about today is some honorable mention field types. So, my ongoing experience with Plant an App is that there are things that are rarely used or things that other people are relying on and using all the time, but that I didn't even know was in there. So there's a couple of those this week, and I thought it'd be fun to just point them out. So one of those honorable mention field types is the clock, and then there's another one, agreement link. So first of all, with clock, if you go into a form and add a field and look for clock, you can add a clock to your field, to your form. And without configuring anything more than just dropping on the form, I'm going to refresh and we'll see what we get, which is showing me the time in the local time. Now, this is kind of a convenience item. It doesn't save data to the reports. You can't pull information off of it. But this would be like if you want to conveniently show a clock to your users. If we go into the, and you could show multiple time zones, you could put multiple clocks on and show different time zones, because all this can be configured what you're showing. So for example, we could go fully digital and pick a particular time zone, like Greenwich Mean Time, and if we were to save that, then we get a different result, and it's showing us just digital clock and GMT. And then, you know, in terms of other options, there are, we can make it be analog only and make it be a dark theme instead of a light theme. There's a couple of different options that are useful. So that's a dark theme clock. And then another way to use this that might be handy would be, and see if I can actually get it configured. If we add a clock, you might use it as more of a timer than a clock. So to show people how long it's taking them to fill out a form, or even a countdown timer, kind of showing it closing in on 0. But we can do a value of 0, and let's see, we'll make this be, I think this would be right if we made it Greenwich Mean Time. So if we save this kind of clock and refresh, then we're seeing basically a count up clock. So they can, we got AM PM on there. So I don't know, we could take that off on the timer, but could show how long it's taking to fill out a form, something like that. So that's clock, a little known feature, at least to me. So I'm gonna leave those on there. I think I'll rearrange just a little bit so they're side by side. And then we'll pick another honorable mention field type, which is, make sure we get that right, okay. The agree to terms, agreement links. So agreement links would look something like this. Agreement links is where you can have lots of things that, rather than just checkbox after checkbox of things that somebody has to agree to, you can kind of enforce that people read through it. So we'll say it's not initially checked, and we're going to enforce that they read all of these things or acknowledge that they've read them, and we'll provide some content. So maybe we have some terms, some conditions, and we'll also have some exclusions. These are just for demonstration, but these pop-ups can be as complex as you want them to be. So we're going to enforce that they read them, and we'll have a button that says that they agree, and we'll also add a nope button here. And these can be saved to the report, and I'm going to also say that it's required that they do this. So this is going to keep them forced that they do this before they submit. We'll have a submit button that causes validation and nothing else. So let's see what that looks like. So now we see agreement links. We could do better on the terminology. Let's do that. I don't like that at all. So we'll say agree. And let's try that again. So I agree, and I try and check the box, and it's going to pop up. I agree terms. These are the terms. These are the conditions. These are the exclusions. And if you check all three of those, then you get the check mark. We could uncheck that and try and submit, and it's going to say it's required. If we, and we've actually already gone through it all, so I'm going to have to refresh here. So we say, I agree to the terms, but no, I don't agree to the conditions, and it's not going to let me check the box. So it's just being able to do that in one place. And you can show a pop-up HTML or you can show a page in there. All right, so that's our honorable mention field types, clock, and agreement. If you have a favorite that I haven't mentioned and we never see, reach out to me on the one of the links that I send. We have a feedback form, and let's talk about those links that I put on the clipboard. There was the ability to link to register in advance for the Low-Code Campfire. Our webinar recordings, you should subscribe to those, as Bogdan mentioned. But there's the webinar feedback form, and that's going to let us, that'll let you give feedback on this event and tell me what little used feature that you think we should be talking about here on Low-Code Campfire in the Trenches, Low-Code Café. There's also a link to the community portal, and that's a great place to get your questions answered and to help other people. And last but not least, there is this link to the obsolete features, and this is going to feed into Radu here in a minute. In our learn.plantanapp.com, in our documentation, I'm going to switch to next, and Radu will help explain why we pick versioning here. But in our important notes, we have obsolete features. And this is coming up in our next version. This is our plan for what we're going to do. It's documentation, so it's saying when it becomes obsolete, when we think we're going to remove it, and when we actually removed it, and then the reason that we're doing that. So this is a way that you can be advised about what's coming up within the product. And with that, I am going to pass it on to Radu and a training update.
Cool. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, so let me start by sharing my screen. Okay. You can see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so the idea, as you mentioned, Dale, we are starting to version our documentation. We kind of started to do this process starting from 1.16 and 1.17 and 1.18 already have. The idea is that during those, starting from 1.16, we started doing a facelift of the UI of the application, and we started renaming some of the existing actions that are there. So I figured out that it makes sense right now to start also versioning the documentation based on the version of the Plantain app that you have. So in case you are wondering and want to find something that's related to one or another version of Plantain app, we are trying to make it easier for you to search and find the proper documentation. Also, the next version that we have here, this is our preparation, our additions for 1.19 in this situation. So basically, whatever is in the next version, this is going to be released as the documentation of 1.19. So the documentation itself right now is part of the development process, in the delivery process of a build, a new version of Plantain app. So whenever a new build like 1.19 or indeed how 1.18 happened to be, we are also going to release a new version of the documentation. First of all, we have a beta program on our community portal. So I wanted to make the documentation available as we develop the features for our beta testers. So whenever they need to find something or need to document based on a feature that they are testing on or basically evaluating at that point, they also have the documentation support for that feature. So we are keeping everything as much as possible in line with what is happening. We are adding new pages, new content to the documentation each week. For example, we added how to, in case your application is hosted in an Azure App Service, what are the settings that you should do to the Azure App Service before updating a Plantain app application. So you guarantee a success each time, because it has a very aggressive cache system. So sometimes the updates were failing. So we are adding content each week more and more, and also we're trying to keep all of the actions that we have in sync, in line, and exactly in the groups that we are going to find it. So each release is going to get a version of the documentation. For the moment, the plan will be to only keep the last 5 version of the documentation available, so we can encourage people to upgrade the systems. But this is not nailed yet, so we are going to figure out how many versions of the documentation we're planning to keep from the past. At the same times, because so many changes are happening right now to the product, and very good changes are happening to the product from a UI perspective, and renaming actions and putting buttons in places where you expect them to be. The course, the Low-Code Fundamentals course, is starting a little bit to fall behind in terms of not the functionality that you learn there, but in terms of the video content that's there. The UI may look a little bit different. So we are aware of this, and we are working on revamping that course to also match the changes, and give it like a Low-Code Fundamentals version 2. So it matches the platform, so you get a very good learning curve from that course. I saw a few days ago, Dale, that there was a question about some misreference that was in the video, besides the latest version of Plantanet. So yeah, things are basically the platform itself, it's ahead of the training material a little bit right now, and we are on it, but we need to see exactly how the application evolves before we can recreate the videos. So yeah, that's kind of the training update right now. So yeah, we are versioning the documentation to make it a little bit easier to find stuff, and we are revamping the Low-Code Fundamentals course to match the latest versions of the application.
Perfect. Before you move on, there's a question that's actually to me, and I would like to address it now. Jim asks if the replacement features, when we have these obsolete features, should the replacement be already usable? And the answer, Jim, is yes, they should be usable. I know particularly with create update a token versus execute token that there were changes that version, if you're up on version 118, then yes, they should be the same. And if they're different, we need to know, because we do, when we have this obsolete feature, we expect them to be the same. When there's a replacement feature, we expect you to be able to get to the same functionality. We don't want to cause you to break anything. So if you would, if you're up on the current version, please document what the issue is. We'll look into it and get it fixed before we pull that feature from the product. The obsolete features are safe to use. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just kind of a heads up that this is where we're going, and this is exactly the kind of thing that we want to discover. So thank you. Great. Thank you, Radu, for letting me jump in there. So let's carry on.
All right. So yeah, I think that's my update for the training and academy standpoint. I think we are good to move into the next section of our webinar, where the hands-on part, and I can start explaining what we're gonna do today and what's the purpose of this material that we are doing. So, not sure how many people watching this know, but Plantanet also comes with something that we call a JavaScript API. The idea is that you can interact with the components of a page through JavaScript. The usage of that is to improve or create new custom logic outside of the box on a page, for your application. So items like let's see, like interacting with the form, like initializing a form, opening a form in a pop-up, closing a form from the pop-up, refreshing a grid, changing a tab, getting information from the URL and so on. we already have JavaScript available for you to work with this. You don't need to. You're not. First of all, you don't need to write your own code to do that. First, second of all, you're not bounded to the existing actions that interact with the with the component. So what I'm trying to say is that you do not need each time. So for example, to open a form in a pop-up, in this case to add something, you need to have a button, which this button comes from a listing module, which is also it's a Plantinab component on this page, right? But this doesn't mean that you cannot open that form in a pop-up from a link or from a event, or maybe going to up to the top of the page with the mouse, and you can open the pop-up for some reason. So you can create your own JavaScript events that can interact with the to interact with it. So the easiest way to let me give you like a short example of how you can do that. So first of all, let me open the form a little bit, because I'm going to need some information from here. So I'm going to need the ID. Right now, I'm going to need the ID of the form. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to open a browser console really quickly. Let me see if I can make it half screen. All right, let's go to the console part, clean it up, right? So the root of the API right now, it's called DNNSF. So this is the root, and then API, and then you start to find the method, the objects containing the methods to interact with different products. So for example, for the form, you have the action form. For the listing, you have the action grid. For the search engine, which actually that also has an API or JavaScript API of searching and clearing filters and specific items like that, you can interact. So the idea, it will be that you can go and say, hey, let's see, action form, all right, and then what do I want to do? So I want to open a pop-up by the ID, right? So I just pass, and then I need to pass the parameters needed to open this this model, right? So 396 was the first one that I needed. So I just open it on the right side with JavaScript. So I didn't need to push the button. I have interacted it like this from here. I also what I can also do is do the same thing and close it, right? So close pop-up by ID, right? 396. Oops, 396. So I've closed it. Well, this and you're gonna say, yeah, well, maybe some of you already noticed that, but usually when you go to the settings of a component, you will see that it's actually explaining, it's already populating it's for, at least for the form in this situation, it's explaining you how to use the how to interact and how to open it and the form in a pop-up. But for example, there are some undocumented items of interacting with this that I would like to show you today, and they're undocumented for a particular reason at this point. So we are planning on redoing the whole front-end API and give it a more robust functionality, and when we didn't want to confuse people with too many learn something that's going to be obsolete in a few months. So we didn't document everything, but the idea, it will be that, for example, let me go back here. You have the opportunity of also passing initialization parameters, and the last parameter, which can be true false, is going to say if you want to reinitialize the form. So what you actually get, well, you basically get the same. Maybe I should actually do something. Sorry?
You're doing close pop-up by ID.
Oh, yeah, sorry. All right. Yeah, open. You're right. Open pop-up ID. So basically, the line that you are seeing here is exactly. Let's go to the add button. Let me see how can. Okay, so it's basically similar to what you're seeing here. The form ID is the first parameter. The reinitialize form is the third parameter, and the query string parameters is the object that you can pass as the second parameter. So that's how you interact with basically the trick is that this action on the right, it's actually calling this API on the front end and passing the proper information for this. The downside of this is the fact that whenever you click, not a downside, but a small optimization, let's say, is the fact that whenever you click the new button, you do a submission request to the server, right? So the button, whenever you click the button, the button doesn't know if it has actions that need to interact only with the front end, or action that need to be evaluated on the back end, like sending an email, generating a PDF, do an API request and stuff like that. So it needs to go to the server, and the server responds with action for open So if I go to the network tab and close it, you see whenever I click the new button, it's doing the API request from the listing and initializing the form. And you're gonna see the response is basically the same function here. Open module by context, module ID, context params, and context renit. So basically calling the JavaScript function exactly as we did. But the advantage of working directly with JavaScript, and just for small operation like opening a pop-up, refreshing, and stuff like that, you don't need to be bounded to a button. So you save a request, and I know you're gonna say, hey, one request doesn't matter. Well, it matters when you get a lot of users. It may start to, maybe you need just a few more CPU power to process something else, which is more important than opening a pop-up for the end user. So yeah, that's mainly the advantage of the front-end API. Also, fairly often used is the one for the listing module, which is the API dot action. The action grid one, which I can basically say the refresh one. I think it's the most often used. Also, I need to grab give me a second to grab the module ID because I do not know it. But okay, 395. So this is refreshing. Well, in this situation, it doesn't matter that much because I only have one entry. But each time I'm calling this, I'm basically triggering a refresh to the whole listing. So in case someone added some other data from another place, I basically get to see that information. Now, that being said, what I would like to do today, there are two things that I would like to show you. So first of all, I would like to show you how we can create, based on this JavaScript API, how we can create first a refresh mechanism for a listing that is a little bit more optimized than what comes out of the box from the product. So just to do that, let me show you for a second what I'm talking about. So a listing component comes with an option to automatically refresh at specific intervals of time, right? So if you go to an automatic refresh, right, you can specify it in seconds how often you want the data to get refreshed. Now, the thing is that the listing component doesn't know if there's new data or it isn't new data. So what's going to do is going to go to the backend. It's going to bring the information it's needed. It's going to evaluate all the condition. It's going to recreate all the buttons and everything like that each time the refresh happens, right? What I would like to propose to do today is to actually create a more, a little bit smarter option to actually achieve this. And instead of doing refreshes every 10 seconds, we actually request the grid to refresh only when we know there's new data. By basically, first, whenever the page loads, we are gonna ask the backend how many items are at that point into the database. It's gonna say, I don't know, 10. And we are going to check at a specific interval when this number changes. When this number changes, that means that we need to refresh the whole grid and execute the whole logic behind the scenes to refresh the grid, not only when the not at every 10 seconds without knowing what's happening behind. And usually the why I choose this example to start with is the fact that usually JavaScript API empowers you to use jQuery to actually call plant and app APIs, right? So usually you use JavaScript API when you want to, I don't know, have some AJAX requests, or you want to have your own custom logic. So that's what I wanted to build. It works really, really well with the plant and app APIs with the AJAX request, and that's basically what I'm planning to build with you today. I'm gonna close the browser console for the moment, and I'm gonna go back to where we are right now. So I just created I created a new page which I call demo page, and on it I have an action form which I called a core. That's how basically I want. It's gonna be like the big brains of that page. It's gonna control the refresh rate of the grid and everything like that, with some JavaScript that's gonna live in that form. So let me also add a listing module, and let me configure this really quickly based on my customer entity. So let's see, I want to start from scratch. What is it? Customers, initial sorting workflows. Okay, all of them. Click save. Okay, give it a name, customers. Add some fields like the name, phone, and email. Let's add those, and I think that's enough for the moment. Let me click on the back button. Let me see how it looks. Okay, so we have a basic listing component right now on the page, and when because of let me exit this edit mode. And because of this, let me see, I forgot to grab my ID. Give me a second. 402. All right. So right now I have the possibility to do the refresh for 402, right? And reaction grid 402 on this page refreshed. It's only one entry, so that really I didn't expect anything. So if I enable the automatic refresh, what's gonna happen? It's just gonna do something like this on specific intervals, and it's just gonna load the server for no reason. So to optimize this process, what I'm planning to do is go under the configuration page, go under the APIs, and I would like to create a new API. So let's see, and I'm gonna say count customers. I'm gonna make a get version of it. I'm not gonna have any input parameters. I'm gonna have an action of run SQL query, and I'm gonna check, basically select count of ID from app.customer. So that being said, I'm gonna say this is the count value, right? And I'm gonna go under to add responses and set a JSON object. Sorry, not an existing object as JSON. Sorry, new object as JSON. Okay, the response is gonna be 200. Okay, the properties, I'm gonna say count equals to count, right? So let's see, and maybe I should go to the security and say the cross-domain policy to be only domains. All right, let's click save and test. Check response. So the count is 1. So whenever I'm calling the count customer method, I'm getting 1. If I go and add a new customer, and let's do that. One, two, three, customer. Okay, oops, too long. Okay, so I have 2 customers now. My API is going to respond with the 2. Now so now that we have this API, you can see that we have a sample. We also have a sample JavaScript jQuery code that we can use to actually get this information inside of our application. So let's go back to my demo page, where I can see that there are only two entries right now. And let's go to the form component that I've added in preparation of this. So what I would like to do, what I would like to do right now, I'm not going to configure fields and buttons, but I'm going to use this as a placeholder for my JavaScript code. So under the settings, I'm going to go and scroll for the initialization scripts. And what I would like to do here, what I will do is basically I'm going to paste the code that I grabbed from my API. And what I can do here, just to see that this is working, I can say I can do a console log of my data dot count, which is the property of the response that I gave as a JSON object. I can click save. I'm gonna open the browser console and I'm gonna go half right now again. I'm gonna refresh this and clear this up really quickly, and you're gonna see that I have these two here, which actually is telling me that whenever that form initializes, it had two entries in the customer database. So what I'm gonna do after this, and let's go back to my full screen. I'm gonna store this variable on this page, basically, right? So let's go back to my JavaScript code. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say, hey, look, I'm gonna put this on the window of the browser and say window dot customer count equals, sorry, I don't want to upset someone. Customer count equals to data dot count, right? So this is gonna be like my initialization script. The first time the page is loading, I'm gonna put the customer count here on the page, so I store this value of the initialization. What I would like to do after that, basically, I'm gonna use the same I'm gonna use the same code and go a little bit below. I'm gonna create an interval. So I'm gonna go and say set interval of function, and let's say 5 seconds is the interval that I want to check this and want to refresh this. And I'm going to use the same code as above, but instead of in the result, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do something like this. So I'm going to say, hey, if my, and maybe I should keep this just so I don't mistype. I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to say, if my window.customer count is different, or maybe let's say, yeah, different, then it's different than the data.count. So basically, every 5 seconds, I'm checking if the API is going to give me a different value than the one that I know I loaded the page, the grid itself with. I'm going to trigger the refresh. I'm only going to trigger the refresh when this number changes. And you're going to say, well, you're basically doing the same thing as the interval, but I'm going to show you a trick which actually optimizes this process a lot. So in this situation, what I need to do, well, I need to go and pick my refresh function, right? I need to get my refresh function and the 402, the 402, which is the listing component. Let's also say console.log just for us. We did refresh. Right, like this. Okay, cool. Let's click save and let's refresh this. I'm gonna open the browser console again. All right, give me, right, so it's the correct one. Yes, it is. Oops, just to be sure I'm not getting, okay, so I'm not getting any errors, right? Set it up, there's tools 2. So 2 is the original number that I got until here. And now it's not refreshing at this point just because there's no data that changes. So what I can do at this point, let me go into the already pre-configured page of the customers. I'm not sure how I can. Let me see. Let me see if I let me see if I can make this in 3 screens, something like this. So this is the console. This is where we actually gonna do the stuff, and this is the end result. Come on, okay. All right, so let's see like this. So I'm just gonna go and add a new customer, C1, customer 1, 1, 2, 3, whatever, R2 at now.com, and I'm gonna go and click on add. Right, so I have customer 3 and it automatically pop up, but we only did the refresh only when adding a new entry, because what's happening behind the scenes, and you're gonna say, well, oh yeah, my my bad, I think I forgot to modify something. What's happening behind the scenes, and I think I did a small mistake. Give me 1 second. I forgot to
reset your count,
to actually update it with the latest value. I forgot to do that, my bad. So here, if this is different, I also need to update the latest version of the value with the data count, right? And because I didn't do that, it's always refreshing, continuously refreshing.
but now it's set up to do it going forward.
Sorry?
Yeah, so now it's set up if you add one or remove one.
Yeah,
it'll keep doing it. It'll refresh only on the 5 seconds.
Only when it spots changes in the number of the customers. Now you're gonna say, well, yeah, but look at the network. You didn't solve anything. You're just flooding the server with 5 seconds APIs that each 5 seconds you are calling your internal API. So did you actually fix anything? Well, the trick is, the first thing is that I'm only searching for one value. So the transfer data itself, it's incredibly small. The second part is that what I want to show you right now. So the trick is, and let me make this one big again. Well, the trick is that I'm actually running a SQL query each 5 seconds. If we are going to have 100 people, there are going to be 500 API calls, basically 500 queries that run. So the smartest thing that you can do in this situation, you just cache the response for the refresh rate. So each 5 seconds, you only touch the database once. You only run a query, otherwise the data is coming from the cache. So you basically created a refresh mechanism that only touches the database once every 5 seconds. And only when these 5 seconds are reached, then the whole data is re-updated to the whole website. So all the users watching that page are going to get data, and you are going to save resources for your server, while not 500 requests are happening and whatever the backend is doing to initialize the grid each time. So I'm going to click save and test, and well, at this point, the response is going to be the same for 5 seconds. The first run is gonna put the value in the cache, and for the next 5 seconds, it's gonna take it from the RAM memory. It's not gonna go to the server for the database server. So at that point, let me see if I can open a request. So basically, it's the initial ones were, well, basically they're instant in a few milliseconds, less than, I don't know, 1.5.
So
milliseconds, it's done.
While you're doing that, I just mentioned I did a low-code feature focus a long time ago that demonstrated that pulling things out of the cache can dramatically save time. And so you're saying you got a big site, you have 500 people watching a single page, but instead of doing 500 database hits and 500 screen refreshes, you're doing essentially you're handling 500 API calls, but only one database call. And so it keeps it very efficient. We did get a question on the clipboard. Jim is asking about whether the JavaScript code for that initialization section could be in an external file.
Oh yeah, definitely. Good question. And let me see this one. Too many, too many screens. Yes. So the idea is that I'm using the form just to easily demonstrate and not switch from text editors and stuff like that. But you can take this and I actually encourage you to not specify the domain and let the APIs relative in case you want to move this from a site to site. But the idea is that you can create a JavaScript file, and in the event section at the on page load you have something called low static files. So you just need to specify the URL of the static file, which can actually be stored in the same server as the application. Or in some situation, I use this, for example, to bring CDN JavaScript from CDNs, basically. So you just need to specify the path of the JavaScript, specify an arbitrary ID that you want to pull, and then all the JavaScript is going to be stored in a separate file. So definitely you can do that.
Yep.
That's it. Sorry, is there any other questions?
That is all. That's all the questions. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of like, so the idea is that interacting with APIs, at least for me, makes the most sense to work with when actually interacting with some AJAX requests, or maybe have some triggers, some custom UI, some buttons, some pop-ups, some things that I want to basically give more functional, some custom perspective, some custom look, and maybe not the look, but the custom feel, something that I optimize. The example that I showed you today, I actually used for a client that was actually using this kind of listing method to show orders that they had in I think it was a restaurant of some kind. And they were actually having add buttons like updating the status of the orders and everything like that. So when the server when orders were coming from the website, they were actually adding those in a list that was updating regularly. The problem was that there were multiple kitchens around the city, and at some point it started to bug out. It started to work slower and slower on the server, and it was actually because the kitchen would need to look at the screen and see what orders they need to complete. It was actually affecting the users ordering, right? So it was slowing down because of and they said they wanted to set up the refresh rate at 1 second, which was actually piling up load on the server. And yeah, they wanted to be instant, like that. It was what it was, but so that's basically the issue, how I personally solve this situation. But imagine this situation can only caching mechanism and using the JavaScript API to create my own custom logic. I can open a form based on a value. I can put a banner that I can enable or disable. I can actually send messages to the whole application. But I think Dale already demonstrated this in past episodes.
So first of all, feedback from Mark saying that this was very helpful, and he'd been doing automatic refresh, and now he can make it be more efficient. So I think it's timely information for our users. You kind of touched on a list of some of the things that can be done through the API, and that it's changing, and that it's undocumented. So you've shown that you can kind of parse through it through the console to find them. But are we going to make a list, or do we have a list of APIs and the functionality that we can make available to clients?
So I personally have this, I can share it with you. But maybe the discussion of this makes more sense to move it for the Low-Code Campfire on Friday. So I have this list of the existing APIs that are right now available in Plantain app, and this is basically what we're planning to do with them in the next month. So we want to rename everything and to put them in a to be constant, because some of them have weird, special objects that you need to initialize to specify for the API to work. And there are also some functions that not sure how many of you actually use. Like one powerful one is the powerful one is basically DNSSF update query string parameter, which takes 2 strings as input, right? And you say key and value, and let me see. You basically take key and value, and let me see if I can make the URL, and I watch the URL here. So it's basically updating. Oops, I deleted something. It's basically updating with whatever you specify into the URL. And another useful one, I think it's DNSF dot the get URL part. Get URL part, which actually can provide you with the query string. Oh no, sorry, I need to pass window.location to it. And it's actually going to provide you with all the queries in an object format, so you can see exactly which key has what value, the page and everything, the URL, the path name, and everything like that. So yeah, there are a few of them, but the plan is to start working and documenting everything that you are seeing in this Excel file here, to start adding those to the learn.plantainapp.com.
So to answer some final questions, yes, we can spend some more time on this on Friday, and if on Campfire, 10 a.m. Central. And Radu, if you're available, we'd love to have you. But I will spend some more time on this on Friday. And then just kind of to wrap it up, to summarize for me, my takeaway: Plantain app has some great patterns that you can use to accomplish what you want. For example, in a listing, to do a data source refresh, and you can get refresh to happen. As you get into more advanced scenarios, either high number of users or wanting to do something that's outside of these great standard patterns, then the JavaScript API lets you roll your own and go wherever you want to go. Is that fair?
I think I couldn't say it better.
Okay. Great. Bogdan, you're going to close us out here? Yes,
we are just right in time. So yes, I think I couldn't have said it better, but yes, this idea of switching to the code mode when something custom needs to happen, I think this is where the power and the defensibility for low code comes. When there's questions about how big can an application can get or how custom, well, there's always this fallback. Go and write the code. And again, you have some APIs, so you don't need to write all the code. So thanks for the content, Radu. Thanks, Dale. Thanks, everyone, for being here in the first session of the year. And we'll be seeing each other again next week, same day, same hour, or this Friday at the Campfire. Bye, everyone.